All right. And here we are. Here's the example of our YouTube video that we're making on a brand new channel. We're broadcasting my screen, and let's check this out. So if I go back, and if I have some kind of PowerPoint presentation, or if I look at my screen, black sword. And if you're demonstrating something, for example, let's say if I was going to show you something with Blender, right? Let's say I was doing some kind of demo or whatever. Here's Blender. And I was going to bring up something to show you guys with Blender. So let's say, I don't know, I want to make a sword with Blender. So you give me a second while I do this so you can see how it works, right? I want to make a sword, a brand new sword with Blender as an asset for a game, right? How would I do that? Well, typically what I want to do here, and this is the demo, by the way, guys, so you guys can see it, is I want to start off with some kind of reference. Every artist or technical artist, I consider myself a technical artist. I'm not a classically trained artist, but I can do certain things. You need a reference, and even the classically trained artists will tell you the same thing. And I have several friends of mine who are classically trained, but they always start from a reference. It doesn't matter who you are, right? So what I want to do is have some kind of background image. Here's the background image that I can use. And if I turn this on and add an image to the background, here's my image. And I can choose that. If I open up my image on my desktop, I want to have this sword. Where I'm going to make a bastard sword because, I'm that kind of guy, right? What the heck, right? And now the only way this image is going to be available is if I'm looking at this from a view perspective in orthographic mode and in the front. I can choose where I want to use this. So here's my all views. Instead of all views, I want it from the front view. Here we go. I'm going to go and view it from the front. And now you can see this is my bastard sword, right? Yay, got a bastard sword. And I'm going to use this as reference, right, as I zoom in to create my object. Now, it's kind of skewed a little bit here. And what I want to do here is, the great thing is you can align this, you can flip it, you can do all kinds of stuff, so that your reference image, here's my rotation. Let's go to, let's say 90 degrees. Let's see how that works. No, it's the other way around. So minus 90. There we go. So there's my bastard sword, this part here. All I care about is this part, right? And I want to kind of center it where my three-dimensional cursor is here. So I want to kind of bring this up. And, you can see up and down is on the y-axis. So I'm going to bring this up here. And I can zoom in. So you can see that the reference image is as close to the origin as I can make it, right? So let's say, whoa. Move it down here. Oh. That looks almost perfect. That's probably about right, let's say. From that perspective, 4.8. So I could probably even make that nicer. And then move it over so that this is roughly in the middle. I'm thinking, 0.91. 0.91 for the middle. No, maybe the other way around. Maybe 0.89. Yes, I think that's probably right. Okay, so I've got my reference image hanging out. I can scroll out here. So now that I've got my image, I'm going to add in, I always start with primitives, so start with a cube. Here's my cube. And what I want to do is expand this cube up so that it takes the length of the image, but I want to be able to see what I'm doing. So let's just go back to view front. Now, it would be nice if you had a numeric keypad here. If you don't, it's totally cool to not have one. You can do it without, but it makes it easier. I'm going to go into edit mode here. This is assuming that you know Blender. Of course, you may not at this point. And I want to kind of highlight these areas here with B select mode. I'm going to bring my cube so it kind of hugs into the middle of the sword here, right? And by the way, guys, this is almost the length of your screencast at this point, because I'm talking about 10 minutes is the maximum time I'm looking for. I mean, that's including things like your PowerPoint presentation and your demo for your game. No more than 10 minutes. If you go beyond 10 minutes, it's okay, but don't go not much more, because you don't need to. You're talking about your game. You're talking about what your app. If you're making an app, you're talking about your application. You're going to talk about the positives and negatives, things that work well, things that didn't work well, how your app or game works, all that kind of stuff. It's exactly what I'm kind of demonstrating in a different way. All right, so if I zoom in here, right, you can see that I want to get as close as I can, right? Let me just bring this up here, and the same thing for the bottom, right? So I'll bring this up and zoom in. Now, there's a decision to be made. Do I want to use a primitive object to create the hilt of my sword, or do I want to use a separate one? I think I'm going to probably use some kind of cylinder for this part, because it's more cylindrical, whereas the top of the sword is more, something that I can use with a simple cube. So I'm going to kind of grab the bottom part and bring this part up so that it's halfway into the hilt, like inside there, just about there. Cool. And what I want to also do is I want to make this a little bit narrow. If you look at it from a three-dimensional perspective, it's still a cube, right? So I got to narrow it down so it doesn't look like this anymore. And the great thing about using primitives in Blender or Maya or 3D Studio Max or whatever you're using to make your assets for your game or anything else that you're doing, any kind of visualization, if you're doing architectural visualization in AutoCAD or whatever, is to try and start with primitives. And then what you want to do is you want to try and decouple as much as possible and kind of, reduce until it's what you need. Okay, so let me just go back and tell you what I'm talking about here. By the way, my video is almost done, right? For those people who want to talk about this. So again, I want to look at it from the front. I can only see my reference image from the front and in orthographic mode. I won't be able to see my reference image any other way. Now, here's a quick and dirty way to do this. I could use B-select mode, grab these two vertices in the top, and then do some kind of skewing, if you will, or scaling. So it's kind of in the top. And the same thing goes to the bottom, right? So I can scale it in. This is not what I would normally do if I was going to notice that there is not quite a point there. And if I wanted to really get in there, you can see that I can probably do even better than that, right? Where if I just kind of take it in just a little bit more. And now you can see also that my sword is not centered properly, and that's okay because I'm going to cut half of it away in a second. All right, let's move down here. This is not exactly looking like a sword yet. And on the bottom here, I want to do the same thing. So I'm going to kind of use, kind of B-select mode. Kind of do that and just kind of scroll that in. Right, there we go. So that's kind of closer to what it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, from a three-dimensional perspective now, it still looks like some kind of pyramid. And I want to kind of, fix that as well, right? So kind of view. And I want to go to the front here. And what I want to do is I want to zoom in. And on the side, notice how wide it is. I want to bring this in, and I want to scale it only from the Z perspective in. So I can scale in from the Z perspective, and I can kind of bring that in until... Bring that down a little bit more. Actually, how about we do the whole sword? That's what I want. Scale in from a Z perspective, and you can see that, right? Scale from a Y perspective. I can see that you can make it as thin as you like so that the sword becomes more sword-like. Now, it's not perfect by any means, but you can see that now I've got kind of the blade of my sword. There are some issues, especially up here. I'm not happy with that because of the way it tapers, right? So typically what I would normally do is in the top here, I could expand this and create separate areas. So I wouldn't expand the sword so it's not tapered to a point like this as much. Now you can see where this is going. This is the kind of video that I normally do, right? But we want to stop recording now. And the way to do that, of course, is to go over here in your Hangouts and stop broadcast.